Good morning, students. Today we are going to do the new chapter of the Mauryan Empire. So, Standard 9, after a long break, we are going to do our history classes. And after Jainism and Buddhism, the next chapter is the Mauryan Empire. Mauryan Empire was set up by Chandragupta Maurya. All of you have seen the Chandragupta Maurya serial, in which you have seen Chanakya, you have learned about him. Chanakya was a guide and a prime minister of Chandragupta Maurya. With his help only, Chandragupta Maurya was able to set up a Mauryan empire. Chandragupta's father was a king, but due to some reason he lost a war, and Chandragupta lived a very poor life with his mother in the woods. But once Chanakya, he was the scholar in the later in the last Nanda ruler, that is Dhanananda. Dhanananda's Purohit, or you can say the advisor, was Chanakya. But he was a very proud ruler, Dhanananda, and he was very cruel to the king because people because he had large resources. The Nanda Empire was a very rich and a very powerful empire. Being the king of a powerful empire, he was very proud. So once he wanted to take some decision, but Chanakya advised him something which Dhanananda did not like. So Dhanananda, so Chanakya's advice was not followed by Dhanananda, and Dhanananda insulted him that being a Brahman, you will guide a king. So that is why he insulted Chandragupta. Dhanananda insulted Chanakya. Chanakya was also known as Kautalya or Vishnugupta. So Chanakya left Nanda dynasty and went to his place, that is Taxila, because he was a learned Brahman of Taxila. So on his way while going to Taxila, he met a young boy who was very courageous and his eyes shone like a leader. So he uh, spoke to Chandragupta and thought that his courage, his braveness, and my intelligence and my advice will help him to build a great empire, and then he will be able to take his revenge from the last Nanda ruler, that is Dhanananda. And that is how the step of Mauryan Empire was laid. So we come to know about the Mauryan Empire from two important sources, that is literary sources and archaeological sources. What are literary sources? Literary sources are written records which are written by some writers, scholarly people, or the people who maintain record of visitors, tourists. These are called literary sources which we get in a written form. Archaeological sources means those sources which were built or which were produced at that time through rocks, through pillars in the form of a temple, anything which are the remains of the past in a physical form, it was known as archaeological source. So written form is known as literary source, and remains of the past as a material is known as archaeological source. So there are two literary sources of the Mauryan Empire, that is Arthasastra. Today also we follow the political policies of Arthasastra. Arthasastra is a book of politics. It tells us how a king should rule a kingdom, how a leader should take care of its people, and how a person can be able to take his revenge from the enemy without hurting his people. This is known as Arthasastra. It was written by Chanakya, who was also known as Kautalya and Vishnugupta. The second is Indica. Indica is written by a Greek ambassador known as Megasthenes. Megasthenes was a Greek ambassador. He was sent by Seleucus to Chandragupta Maurya's court. Once after the death of Alexander, Seleucus became the king of Greek, and he wanted to take back the territories which once Ashoka has conquered. So he came and attacked India. At that time, Chandragupta Maurya ruled over India. But Chandragupta gave a crushing defeat to Seleucus, due to which Seleucus got his daughter Helena married to Chandragupta, and he had to give the places of Afghanistan, Balochistan, and many much and many more amount to Chandragupta because he was defeated in the war. And in return, Chandragupta presented 500 war elephants to Seleucus. So after that, he returned back to his kingdom and he sent Megasthenes as an ambassador to Chandragupta's court. This was there to create a friendly relationship between both the kings. The archaeological sources, we will study Sanchi Stupa. Sanchi Stupa was built by Ashoka the Great. It is, you can say, a dome-like structure, and inside the dome-like structure, the relics of Buddhas are kept. Means Buddha's body's part, a bone, nail, hair, shoes, anything which is kept in the center, and a dome-like structure is built. And on that dome-like structure, many life stories of Buddhas are depicted, and people go around that stupa and worship Lord Buddha. Next is Ashokan edicts. After losing Kalinga war, because Ashoka's kingdom, the life of a king, is divided into two parts. One, he was a great warrior, and the later he was a great server. Warrior means he fought wars to extend his kingdom. But when he lost Kalinga war, he gave up warfare and he followed the policy of Dhamma Vijaya. So previously he was following the policy of Digvijaya, means to win his people through wars. And then he followed the policy of Dhamma Vijaya, means to win over the people by the words of Dharma. That is was known as Dhamma Vijaya. And after he adopted Dhamma Vijaya, he noted down many policies, and these policies he printed on the rocks, pillars, walls of the temples, and placed it at different places so that the people can follow these values and lead a simple and a good life. So let's study about Arthasastra. It is a treasure house of politics, means this book deals with politics. What does it contain? Rules of diplomacy. Diplomacy means dealing with the other people. How, say, suppose if show your anger to your enemy, the enemy will attack you with more power. But in front, you have to deal in such a way that the anger of the enemy decreases and you become stronger to keep your kingdom safe from your enemy. So this is diplomacy. Sometimes we follow diplomacy to win the hearts of our enemy, and sometimes we wage war. This is what India is going on doing with China and Pakistan. Previously, due to policy of diplomacy, we were taking care of the terrorism. We did not take action. But when it became too extreme, then we had to do surgical strike. So this is called how we deal with people and our enemy. Next is the principles of administration. Administration means how a leader or a king rule his kingdom. A person can remain as a king or a leader when his people give him support. But suppose if the people go against him, he can't be a leader. He will lose the elections, or he will lose the faith of the people, and the people will remove him and place somebody else as their king. So Arthasastra teaches a king or a leader how he should take care of his people by serving them, by helping them, by taking strict actions against the criminals, or how to deal with the common people. It is written in Sanskrit by Chanakya. Chanakya was a learned scholar from Taxila. He is also known as Kautilya. He was the advisor and the prime minister of Chandragupta Maurya. It contains 6,000 shlokas. Shlokas means paragraph. Paragraph of 5 to 6 lines are known as shlokas. Like we read out the shloks during the pujas and the yajnas. Like that, it is written in a poetic form, but in groups, in paragraphs. So you can say shlokas are paragraphs, 6,000 paragraphs, and it is divided into 15 sections and 180 subjects. 15 sections means 15 parts, and it contains administration on 180 subjects. Now you will think, what is 180? First, central administration, provincial administration, how spice can be kept, how the farmers have to be dealt, how the traders have to be dealt, how the king can behave with the criminals. Like this, there are many subjects, and like this, 180 subjects are there. The book was discovered in 1909, and its English translation is now available. So if anybody wants to read about Arthasastra, you can Google it, and the English version of Arthasastra is available, and you can read it. Next is Indica. Indica was a book written by Megasthenes. Who was Megasthenes? Megasthenes was an ambassador in the court of Chandragupta Maurya. He was sent to the court by Seleucus, the Greek ruler. You know that Chandragupta Maurya defeated Seleucus, and Chandragupta married the daughter of Seleucus, Helena, and made a friendly relations with Seleucus, due to which Seleucus sent Megasthenes as an ambassador. Megasthenes lived in India for about 5 years. He went to the Nalanda University, then he went to the different places, and he studied about different places. And after that, when he went back to his own country, he wrote whatever he have seen and whatever he has felt. He wrote everything. So we can say that Indica gives a true picture of India's condition at that time. Because if the poet of a king or a writer under the king writes, he will never writes the defects or the disadvantages of the king or the weaknesses of the king, because the king may put him behind the bars. But when Megasthenes went back to his country, he had no fear. So the Indica gives a true picture of Indian society at that time. He stayed in Patliputra. Patliputra means modern Patna, for about 5 years, and wrote about his experience for what he noticed during his stay. Means when he went back to Greek, he wrote the book. The original Indica has not been found. Some say that it is in the Museum of Greek, but Greek has never shared this book with anybody. So we don't know the real story why Indica has not been found. But some stories of Indica is mentioned in the work of Greek writers. So that gives us information what was the condition of Mauryan Empire at that time. Next is Ashokan edicts. Why edicts are considered very true information about that period? Because edicts were written on clay tablets, on rocks, and many other places, which cannot be erased and which cannot be manipulated, means it cannot be changed. So edicts give us true picture and true story of that time. Ashokan edicts are instructions of the kings, which are regarded as a unique collections of documents. The edicts contains descriptions of the principles of Dhamma, including treatment towards men and animals. I told you, Ashoka took up the policy of Dhamma Vijaya only after Kalinga War. So before Kalinga War, he was not very polite. He was a very egoistic, very ambitious ruler. He wanted to conquer large territories. But the Kalinga War gave him a great change in his life, because it was a 10 days war. After the 10th day, when he won the war, he went out to see what was happening in the battlefield. When he went there, he saw the two places. The land of Kalinga was between two rivers. Both the river water was red in color. Women and children were crying all over the field, and the dead bodies of the soldiers laid on the ground. This picture gave a miserable description to Ashoka, and that was the day when he gave up warfare and he adopted the policy of Dhamma Vijaya. After that, he never took up sword. He only won the hearts of the people by love. So, edict contains true descriptions of the principles of Dhamma, including treatment towards men and animals, because he adopted Buddhism after Kalinga War. And Buddhism follows the middle path, not extreme as Jainism and not very ritualistic like Hinduism. So, it follows the middle path, and that only Ashoka adopted. So, Buddhism became very famous because kings like Ajatashatru, Ashoka adopted Buddhism and used their material and resources for the propagation of Dhamma. These edicts are a reliable source of information as it cannot be erased or manipulated. Ashokan's inscriptions can be categorized on rocks edicts, pillar edicts, and cave edicts. Rocks and pillars and caves. It means that Ashoka made people write the moral values of Dhamma in rocks, pillars, and caves. And he placed these rocks and pillars at different places. About 14 rock edicts have been discovered, more than 7 pillar edicts have been discovered, and in one description of these rock edicts only, the Kalinga war description is given. So these are very true descriptions by which we come to know about the real feeling of the Mauryan Empire, real resources of the Mauryan Empire, and how Mauryan Empire was propagated after the Kalinga war. Next is the Sanchi Stupa. It is a Buddhist stupa built by Ashoka to enshrine the relics of Buddha. Natural, Buddha never said that I am a god. He never said, but after his death, people only started worshipping as God. So that is why those, and then Buddhism got divided into two parts, Hinayana and Mahayana. One worshipped Buddha as God and one worshipped Buddha as teacher. So Ashoka took up Buddha as a teacher. So he never made Buddha statue, but he depicted Buddha's Buddha's presence in the form of stupa. He put Buddha's part of a body's part of a bone, hair, sandal, hair, anything. He put it in the middle and he made a dome, shape of a dome over it, and then decorated the dome with the pictures of Buddha's life. And around it, the people went and chanted the hymns of Buddhism. This stupa is the one of the greatest stupa in India. It has 4 gateways decorated beautifully with sculptures of plants and animals, because our love first of all is with plant, because plant gives us life on earth. The dome-like structure contains sculptures from Buddha's life and Jataka tales. Jataka tales is the holy scripture of the Buddha, and it tells us about the previous life of Buddha, what he was, how he preached, how he taught moral. All these are depicted in the Jataka tales. Those have been printed as a sculpture on the Sanchi Stupa wall. It is made up of unburned brick and stones. Buddha is represented not in a form of a body or a human being. He is represented by the symbol of a peepal tree, lotus, or wheel. Because we all worship even peepal tree till now. Lotus is offered to God as a flower, and a wheel 24 hours, because God watches us 24 hours. On all the 24 hours we are under the view of God. The pillars are surmounted by capitals, means on the top of the pillar there are capitals. Capitals means sculptures of lions are there, and it contains at the entrance of each gate it is placed. It is situated, where is the Sanchi Stupa? Would you like to know? You would like to go also? It is situated 45 kilometers from Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh. Now come to political history of Maurya. In Mauryan Empire, we know about only 3 kings, that is Chandragupta Maurya, his son Bindusara, and Ashoka. Because after Ashoka, those who became the king, they were weak successors, and they were not able to keep up the Mauryan Empire's glory. The reason behind is that Ashoka gave up warfare. He didn't adopted the policy of warfare. He stopped investing in army. His army became weak. So after his death, the successors also did not pay attention in the army. Due to what happened? The neighboring kingdoms got more powerful. They made their army strong, and they attacked and took back their kingdoms. This is how the Mauryan Empire got ended. So the Mauryan Empire was founded by Chandragupta Maurya with the help of a Brahmin scholar, Chanakya from Taxila. Chandragupta ruled from 324 BC to 300 BC. Chandragupta was succeeded by his son Bindusara, who ruled from 300 BC to 327 BC. After the death of Bindusara, his son Ashoka ascended the throne and ruled from 273 BC to 232 BC. The empire of Mauryas had declined rapidly after Ashoka of his incapable successors. So, as my view, instead of saying the successors incapable, why can't we say that Ashoka was also the reason of the downfall of Mauryan Empire? Because after he adopted the policy of Dhamma Vijaya, he started religious and moral conducts. And a kingdom cannot be powerful without an army. So this is, but we can't blame Ashoka. He was a great ruler. He brought many changes in our country. So we will say that his successors were weak. Next, naturally, when a king, anybody rules a place or a kingdom, there are two types of administration: central administration and provincial administration. In modern times, we say federal administration because the federal government consists of two parts: state government and the union government. So, union government only makes the central administration. So, at that time, the king was the center head of all the administration. The king was the supreme authority and his throne was hereditary. What do you mean by hereditary? Means after his death, his son will only become the king. Though the son is capable or doesn't matter, he will only become the king. So due to this only, many kingdoms fell down, because if the king's son is not capable, but he is made the king, if he's not capable, how will he rule the kingdom? That is why we say that hereditary reason was the main reason for the downfall of so many kingdoms. If they would have said that a capable person from among their kingdom will become the king, then the kingdom would have never be ended. So the king was that is why in our country, prime minister and president do not have a hereditary form. They have elected people, representatives are there to rule the country. The king of the supreme authority and his throne was hereditary. He was also the supreme judge. Today, the chief justice is the supreme judge. But the person who makes the law, if he becomes the judge, you can understand the manipulation of the law. So he was also the supreme judge and the supreme commander of the armed forces. The king is not able to do everything alone. So you always have a council of ministers, and each minister was responsible for his department. Same thing today, you can say the prime minister rules the our country, and he has a council of ministers, and each minister is responsible for his department. That is why we have cabinet minister, home minister, finance minister. If we see, we are following the previous principles, or we can also say we are following the politics of Arthasastra. The important officers were the chief Purohita. Today also in our country, when a person is taken birth, we call the Brahman or a Pandit. When a person dies, we look for a Pandit. In all official important work, we look for a Pandit. So the king had a Purohita to tell him the proper date, proper time to take action. Senapati, the commander-in-chief, Sanidhata, the head treasurer, means he looked after the treasury, and Samaharta, the taxation expert. We can say the finance minister and his group of ministers. So at that time, we didn't call finance minister. Today's finance minister represented Maurya's empire, Sanidhata and Samaharta. The king took periodical tours and brought small changes in the administrative system. Even our prime minister takes periodical tours. If there was a Amphan Tufan in Calcutta, he went on a tour to see how much chaos was created, what damage was done, and after that he tried to help those people. So either a leader or a king, they have to take tour. So when you study in a room, your mother comes and look for you, are you still sleeping or you are studying? So that is also you can say look or a catch hold of my students by their parents. So a leader also has to catch hold of his people, that they are ruled properly or not, or their officers are doing work properly or not. The king took periodical tours and brought small changes in the administrative system. Ashoka appointed special officers known as Dhamma Mahamatras to look after the welfare of his subjects. The central province was looked after by the committee of 30 members. Today also we have about 180 council of ministers, and again those ministers are divided into small groups. So whenever a central or a government works, they can't work alone. They have to have a committee to look after all the problem. Next is the provincial administrator. We can say the state administration. Chandragupta divided his kingdom into 4 provinces and Ashoka into 5 provinces. The provinces were headed by Kumaras, who were generally the prince from the royal family. Naturally, he gave the provinces to his own son, his brother, or anybody. Kumaras were assisted by governors, Today, the chief minister visited by governors. There were other officers like Mahamatra, Pradeshika, Tehsildar, Yuktas, etc. Mahamatras, the special officers to look after the subjects properly. Pradeshikas, you can say the district collectors, Tehsildar, the revenue collector, Yuktas, the officers in charge of that province. The province were further divided to districts, and each district consisted of number of villages. Districts were headed by sthanikas and village was headed by gramika. So there were different types of officers who helped the king to rule after the kingdom. Then we will do about Ashoka's Dhamma. After the war of Kalinga, Ashoka adopted the policy of Dhamma Vijaya. Ashoka's Dhamma was not a religion, but a moral code of conduct which a person has to follow. One thing, that Ashoka, to make his people follow the moral code of conduct, he himself followed the moral policies. He gave up hunting, he gave up gambling, he brought the wine from his palace and threw it in front of his people. He himself thought that if I should become an example for others, then only the people will follow me. So that is why he himself first adopted the policy of Dhamma, and then he helped his people to follow. He spread his views of Dhamma by getting it engraved on rocks and pillars all over his kingdom. Today we see hoardings, discount, great dhamaka, about Jam Street. We see advertisement, but at that time those things were not there. So what did Ashoka made the people remember the policies of Dhamma? He wrote the policies of Dhamma in the rocks and pillars and placed them at different places so that the people can read it and follow it. That is why you have notice board in the classroom. Teachers write the thoughts, help them so that you read and follow something. Okay, children. The principles of Ashoka's Dhamma are respect elders and love children. Even today, we have the same principle. Ahimsa, non-violence. We should not hurt each other, but you are the first one to fight. Theory of karma means you get reward as you did. That is what? Jaisa karam karoge, vaisa pal paoge. That is what in Gita also it's written. No belief in rituals and ceremonies. Today, in this time of COVID, we are not able to gather. So are we following the rituals? So without rituals also we can do. Are we following the ceremonies? Without ceremonies also we can live. So it is the true thing which we have to follow. There should be tolerance to all religion. All religion are equal. No religion teaches you bad things. Every religion teaches you the moral code of conduct. But it is our religious leaders who manipulate and make us believe the false thing and the superstitious things. Ashoka banned drinking, gambling, and other undesirable activities. So, by this, Ashoka made an impact on the life of the people. He united the people because religious tolerance was there, so made all the people live together. He did moral conducts. Why? Because giving up drinking, value, and all, the moral values of the people got affected due to ahimsa or non-violence. The crime was stopped, and by following the principles of Dhamma, people lived a happy and a social life. So this is what is all about modern empire. Children, please read the chapter, try to write the question answers. Any problem, please message. If you will do, you will only learn properly. Thank you, children.